Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back another video from Ham on Beat. Now, I'm taking a little bit of a break from the debunking a record. We've got extras, and I'm going to dive into some other JoJo videos. And this one is JoJo's most wasted character, Merlai Ann. Now, yes, very strange. Introduced in part 3 for a very short period of time, and then just left. It was so bizarre. Because I'm sure later on in other parts, when they bring in, like, other young people to help the gang out or whatever, they don't just come in for a couple episodes and disappear, they become part of the group. But yeah, let's see what this is about.
I'm on the beat.
Possibly like what she could have offered, or what they could have done with her, or I don't know. I do not know.
One of the JoJo series' most overlooked characters is the runaway girl, also known as Anne, the young girl who momentarily joined the group for a part of their adventure in Stardust Crusaders. She appears in only 16 of Part 3's 152 chapters and in only 6 of the anime's episodes. Despite this, she makes quite the impression, and people often wonder why she was quickly written out.
Oh yeah, I was under the impression when I first watched it that she was going to be, like, along for the ride.
And how the series might have turned out differently if she had stayed around. If you weren't already aware, Araki has actually voiced his regrets about the character and has said that he would have given her more to do if he wrote the story today. So in this video I want to go over everything we know about Anne, who despite making a very small appearance, actually has more to her than you might expect.
Interesting.
The runaway girl first appears in the 14th chapter of Stardust Crusaders, the start of the fight against Dark Blue Moon. She stowed away on the ship disguised as a boy, claiming to be trying to reach her father in Singapore. She is shown to be someone with a bit of an attitude, and she honestly reminds me a lot of Joseph when he was younger. After being found out, she jumps into the ocean to escape. Jotaro saves her from a shark attack with Star Platinum, where he discovers that she's actually a girl. While they're initially suspicious of her, her phony confidence doesn't really work on the Crusaders, and they quickly rule her out as an enemy stand user. After this, she was used as a hostage during the fight with Dark Blue Moon, and stayed with the group after they were forced to escape on lifeboats.
Yeah, she has the weird moment with the monkey as well on the boat.
In the following arc, she and the others boarded the Strength ship and encountered its orangutan stand user. That whole shower scene seems to be a reference to one from the 1986 movie Link, a horror movie about a killer orangutan.
Oh.
This was a bit of a trend with Part 3, which references a ton of horror movies across many fights.
Right.
After the group arrived in Singapore, she continued to follow them around. She claims that her father agreed to meet her in a few days, and they let her stay with them for the time being. Her next major role was in the fight with Yellow Temperance, where she accompanied Jotaro and the imposter Kakyoin around town. She was separated from Jotaro during the fight and called the others for help. After the fight, the group boarded the train to India when Polnareff wonders where she went. He suspects that she's lying about her father and is actually an orphan. We see that she really kept following them on the train and is dreaming about Jotaro.
Yeah, like, I thought it was one of those nice things where it's like, you know what, she doesn't have any friends, she doesn't have any family, she feels like she's connecting and getting to know the group.
Her final appearance comes a short time later during the Wheel of Fortune fight. They find her hitchhiking on the side of the road to Pakistan, and she reveals that she was lying earlier and that she actually ran away from her parents in Hong Kong. She sticks around during this fight, with her final appearance in the manga being when the others say they're putting her back on a plane to Hong Kong. That's her entire story in the original manga, and it amounts to a pretty odd stretch for a side character. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think she just didn't have much to do, and her dream of traveling the world wasn't really seen to completion before her exit from the story. Speaking about the character in 2021, Araki said that at the time it was hard to get the editors to accept a female character as one of the leads. Oh. He liked the idea of having the girl on the team, but eventually decided to make her leave since the fights up ahead were going to be too violent.
Right,
we can even see this in the story itself, since in fights like the one with Yellow Temperance, she ends up separated from the action. Araki says that if he were writing the story now, he would have likely made her a stand user to hold her own. In this way, we can see the idea for Anne carry over into other parts. In Part 4, we had Hayato, who wasn't a stand user, but did have some knowledge of what was happening and could help out in his own way.
Very helpful.
Part 6 also gave us Emporio, who was a stand user and a character very relevant to the ongoing story. One thing you might notice if you're a fan of the anime is how I referred to this character as the runaway girl. This is because back in the original manga, she actually didn't have a name.
Right.
It wasn't until the anime adaptation of Part 3 where she was finally given one.
Oh.
The producers asked Araki to come up with a name for her, and he gave her the name Merlai Ann. In the anime itself and other media, they just call her Anne, but her full name actually has some significance. Merlai Ann is a pun based on the merlion, the official mascot of Singapore, although it is somewhat strange when we know that she was only lying about being from Singapore and actually ran away from Hong Kong. So I think it's possible that this may even be a fake name she came up with herself.
Right.
Beyond the manga, Anne actually has made some more appearances. The first of these was in the 1992 drama CD adaptation of Stardust Crusaders.
Cool.
This was the first ever JoJo adaptation, predating any of the anime, OVAs, or games.
Oh.
It was divided into 3 volumes, first covering the beginning of the story, then the fight with Jay Guile and Whole Horse, and finally the fight with Dio. One of the most notable things about this adaptation, though, is that the first volume actually features a fight with an entirely new stand, Strange Relation. And just as notable is that Anne actually appears in this fight. In the drama CD, she's voiced by Konami Yoshida, and like the manga, she doesn't have a name and is instead referred to as just Bad Girl.
Bad Girl.
The part of the drama CD she's in takes place in India, so in between the fights with Yellow Temperance and Jay Guile. Strange Relation takes the form of a pipe organ played by an old man, and the song it plays can control the minds of stand users. Anne plays a minor role in the story, appearing at the beginning with Kakyu and Polnareff and Avdol doing her typical back-and-forth banter with them. There's actually some nice continuity here when Kakyoin is controlled by the song, and she says that it reminds her of the fake Kakyoin back in Singapore. Later she runs to Jotaro and Joseph to warn them about the enemy taking over the others. With this being an audio drama, there's some obvious limitations, so Anne fulfills a purpose of being able to talk about what's going on since she's immune to the mind control. At the end, Joseph destroys the enemy's stand and Anne is happy that Jotaro is okay. This is pretty much everything to her appearance here since she does not show up in any of the following drama CDs. But regardless, it is nice to see her appear again and it makes me appreciate her part of the group dynamic. Here she sort of acts as a foil to Polnareff, which is a role that Iggy would later fill. She has also had some JoJo video game appearances. The first of these was the PS1 version of the JoJo Capcom fighting game. She appears as part of the Super Story mode, which goes over the plot of the manga. This adapts the fight with Dark Blue Moon, which takes the form of a QTE, and then the fight with Strength, which is a shooting minigame where you have to shoot at forever while avoiding Anne.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty much the last time she comes up here, since the game adapts the fights with Yellow Temperance and Wheel of Fortune without her having any dialogue. Although when ZZ is defeated, she is still there on...
It'd be interesting, I'd love to know if with that, if you could put the G-Con 45, I think that was the first one, wasn't it? If you could plug that in and use that as a shooting, for that shooting game, that'd be interesting.
The picture of everyone laughing. Her voice lines in the game are done by Junko Takeuchi, who is actually very well known as the voice of Naruto and Gon. Her only other game appearance is as a unit in the mobile game Pitter Patter Pop, where she is a unit alongside Jotaro. Lastly, we come to the anime, where as I mentioned before, she was given an official name for the first time. Here she is voiced by Rie Kugimiya, who is known for voicing Alphonse in Fullmetal Alchemist, as well as Haruka from the Yakuza or Like a Dragon series.
Cool.
The anime actually does a bit more with the character as well. A new scene was added of the group checking into the hotel, where she refuses to share a room with Polnareff and makes them get her own room. The most notable change, though, comes from her final appearance, where she's actually given more of a proper send-off. This new scene shows them actually putting Anne back on the plane home. They explain the nature of their journey to save Holly and convince her to go home to her parents. And finally, she sees Jotaro one more time as he sees her off. Since Anne leaving was very abrupt in the manga, I'm glad they added this scene here since it makes the character have a much more satisfying conclusion.
Right, yeah.
Overall, Anne is a very interesting character. You can see the ways Araki was trying to make her implementation work.
Right, so in the manga they just tell her to go, and then it's implied that she goes. But in the anime, we actually see them all just kind of give her a send-off, even though it does seem a bit abrupt anyway.
As well as how it didn't really pan out. In the previous parts, and even previous Araki manga, he has child characters and supporting roles. Poco in Part 1, for example, is very similar to Anne, but he isn't part of the whole story and just has his own arc within a couple fights, which makes him more of a cohesive part of the story. Part 2's Smokey was set up as a sidekick for Joseph, but like Anne, didn't play much of a role in the plot. He more served as a stand-in for the audience to learn about Joseph and what happened to the Joestars between Part 1 and 2. Although Smokey did notably return for the ending and even got a nice epilogue, which is still better than Anne's departure in the manga. In Bao the Visitor, we have Sumire, a little girl who is the secondary character. She actually fit into the story very well, and I think one of the reasons for that is that she herself had powers. She couldn't really fight, but Sumire had a useful ability and her role in the story made a lot of sense. So I think that was really what was missing for Anne. In a story like Stardust Crusaders, where the characters are on a constant journey, there is simply no reason for Anne to continue to be allowed to stay with the group when she's just going to be put in danger. I think Araki realized this, and I do think the story is better with her gone rather than having her with the team when she doesn't have any personal stake in the fight with Dio. I've spoken before about how Araki originally planned for Whole Horse to join the main group, but decided against it when he felt he threw off the team's balance by being too similar to Polnareff. So later in Egypt, we got Iggy, who is notable for being opposite of Polnareff and them eventually growing to like each other. I think it's interesting that when Araki was considering adding Whole Horse, it was the very next fight after Anne left. So I believe Anne staying was the original plan, and Araki decided to come up with something new as he wrote her out. And as I mentioned, Anne also has a role as a foil to Polnareff, so I think much of her role in the story lived on through Iggy. And I do think that was a good choice, since Iggy's appearance in the story gave us a really hard-hitting emotional moment that I don't think Araki would be willing to do with a child character at that time. And that's where we also see Araki's child characters improve in later parts, since Hayato and Emporio are both characters that have a direct connection to the plot and are given satisfying arcs. Like Araki said, if he had written the part today, we might have seen Anne as a stand user, and may have ended up seeing a lot more of the character, even if she was never placed in mortal danger.
Like, what kind of stand would she have had? What kind of abilities would it have performed?
I hope you enjoyed this look back
know.
at one of the JoJo series' most overlooked characters. Let me know below in the comments what your thoughts were on Anne, and how you feel she could have been better used in the story. I also want to hear who some of your favorite underrated characters are, since I may make a video going over one of those too.
That'd be cool.
If you want to stay updated on new videos, make sure to subscribe and click the bell. You can also...
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, so, yeah, interesting look at a character that wasn't fully utilised, I suppose. Times change and that. It's interesting, isn't it, that, like, if he wrote it again, he'd write her in, give her a stand. But yeah, there was no real motivation. Everyone else had a reason to go find Dio, didn't they? But she didn't. So it does kind of make sense that they wrote her out that way. But it's cool that the manga added extra stuff to give her a proper, like, bye-bye, rather than just, she's gone. So, yeah. Thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video, I want to be able to watch Patreon-only reactions, such as the original Dragon Ball series. All links in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is all there to help support channels. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for that. Thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. I'll see you guys next time.